All right, here we go. Now, Public had to do very well last week. I mean, you didn't get any upsets. Nothing. I mean, I told you I took Notre Dame, Penn State, and Texas in every kind of money line combo parlay you could do. I didn't want any part of that Ohio State game because I want to see how Ohio State responded, and Ohio State probably looked the best to anybody. I mean, congratulations, Oregon. Undefeated. Great season. Already beat Ohio State. You get all this, and what do you get in the second round? The toughest possible opponent you can find. I can make a very good case the two best teams in the country are playing each other in the next round. All right, let's get Richard Johnson, CBS Sports college football writer. I'll break down these four games with you, but first, give me your thoughts sort of on a macro perspective. You know, it's only been one day. I know Lane Kiffin's all fired up, you know, and people are jumping to conclusions, but you know everybody overreacts, right? I mean, when we look at this, what are we learning and where are we ultimately going with this college football format?
Well, Eric, first and foremost, I love your point about Oregon getting probably the second best team in college football in their opening game. I think one of the things that needs to change about the college football playoff is there must be a reseeding mechanism so that the number one team in the whole tournament is not playing probably the number two team in the whole tournament. I think the number one team should get the lowest remaining seed when they play their opening game, just like what happens in the NFL when the teams at the top of the AFC and the NFC get their buys. I think it's a good thing about the NFL playoffs. Look, I think the college football playoff will probably expand at the first time of asking, which will probably be in 2026. I think when that happens, we'll go from 12 to 14 teams. And when we go to 14 teams, I think that would mean the top two seeds get buys, and that's it. And then you seed the rest of the field 3 through 14, and we play those games out. I do think those games should remain on campus. The home games were absolutely electric settings, even if the results themselves were duds. Look, at the end of the day, the 4-team college football playoff format gave us average margin of victory in those semifinal games of just over 15 points. So blowouts are a feature, unfortunately, not a bug.
Yeah, you can't yell at people because the games weren't competitive. I mean, you got to pick the most deserving teams and have it be what it is. And we do have to reward teams and get them to play at home. And I'm with you. I like the home advantage there. I don't want to see everybody going to neutral sites. I mean, you already had some problems, like, for example, Penn State with the weather selling that thing out and tickets were cheap. Can you imagine if they played that game in Charlotte? It would be rough. All right, now let's get to it. Let's start with Penn State. Going to Boise, blue turf. There's two ways to look at this. One, you don't know what it's like to go to Boise and play in that blue turf. And they do. And people have underestimated Boise over and over and over. And here comes Ashton Jeanty. Number two is, yeah, this is a step up in class, and we saw it last week. We have haves, we have have-nots, and Penn State is a have. What are you thinking here in this one?
Unfortunately for Boise, you're going to have to play it in one of those neutral sites. You got
to play in Arizona. Right. To be fair, I call them the blue turf. I know they're not going to the cold weather. They're playing this one in the Fiesta. Georgia and Notre Dame playing the Sugar. We're going to sort of neutral sites here, but I get what you're saying. Sorry. So if I wasn't clear on that, I apologize. Go ahead. Tell me what you're thinking.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I was a little concerned about Boise drawing this specific matchup. I thought Boise could dominate SMU if they were to draw SMU. They'd be able to run it all over SMU because I was worried about what the Ponies had in the trenches. Unfortunately, I'm not worried about what Penn State has in the trenches at all. They might not even have to stack the box to defend GT, but if they do, I think Penn State has enough on the perimeter of their defense and in the secondary to say, hey, Ashton, you're going to be looking into an 8 or a 9-man box, which I know you've done with a lot of these Mountain West opponents this season, but that ain't what you're up against. You're up against Penn State Nittany Lions, Abdul Carter, and what they have up front for Penn State. I think they'll be able to get Ashton Jeanty on the ground, and I am not really worried at all if I'm Penn State about what Boise can do in their passing game. It's a one-man show for the Broncos.
All right, I'm with you. I think this line's got to climb. I mean, Penn State, to me, looks like they can really inflict some damage here. All right, now we have Texas and Arizona State. What can Arizona State learn from what Clemson did against Texas? Because Texas won at about the margin, I thought, but they won in a very different way than I thought. I thought Texas's defense would hold Clemson down, and they would win this game, 24-10. Instead, it was a high-scoring affair, and Texas won by 2 touchdowns. What's your take? How can Arizona State learn from what they saw with Hook 'em Horns?
Yeah, Eric, one of the most confusing things to me was that Clemson threw the ball really well. I mean, they threw themselves back into this game. At one point in time, it was a one-possession game there for a little bit. I was really, really interested in the fact that Clemson was able to do that. Clemson's passing game has not been up to snuff, in my opinion, in the last few years. So if you're Arizona State, you say, well, we've got Cam Scatterbo, and he's an incredible running back, but maybe we go to the air and we test these Texas defensive backs. I mean, Andrew Makuba and Jahdae Barron are as good as they get as defensive backs for the Horns, but they got yesterday by Clemson. But if you're Texas, I think you are kicking your feet up and you're saying, we can run the heck out of the ball against pretty much everybody. I was worried about that going into the Texas A&M game, but they ran the ball in Texas A&M. And in the Georgia game, Georgia's a great front, so, you understand that. But Texas ran the ball really, really well yesterday. And I think if you can do that and you can take the ball out of Quinn Ewers' hands, because I think, unfortunately, Quinn Ewers can throw this Texas team into trouble. I think Quinn Ewers has a lack of effectiveness in the red zone as a passer, and they struggle to finish drives because of it. So if I'm Texas, even though I'm down to my third, fourth running back, I say, man, if I can get it going in the run game, I'll just take the air out of the ball and I won't let you have it, Arizona State.
Yeah, I really like Arizona State's team total under. The one team total I got wrong was Clemson team total under, but we hit Indiana team total under, we hit SMU team total under. I'm going back to it. I think Scatterbo is going to run into really the strength of the Texas defense. I know they don't post a lot of props on college, running back, rushing attempts, that kind of thing, but I would bet Scatterbo yards under as well. Although I love the kid. Fun to say, fun to play, but I would actually fade him in this game. Georgia, Notre Dame. You know what I find interesting, Richard? Everybody I talk to kind of thinks like Notre Dame's just going to win this game. Yet Georgia's favored. And the line's moving up. And they're at home. Are we underestimating Georgia? Georgia, I have no read on. Every time I think they're good, they stink. Every time I think they stink, they're good. I go back and go, oh, yeah, didn't they win that game and they lost it? I think, oh, yeah, they played Carson Beck through 3 picks against Texas. And then I remember, oh, yeah, but they still won. What do I do with Georgia here?
I'm fading the Bulldogs in this spot, Eric. I'm taking Notre Dame. So you guys keep betting this line up. Get it over a field goal if you can so that I can take it on the other side and take the Irish. Look, I know Carson Beck's on our full screen here. I'm not reporting this, but who are we kidding? I do not think Carson Beck is going to play in this game. We're talking about Carson Beck with an elbow injury the way we talk about pitchers. I mean, the guy may need Tommy John for all we know because that elbow is in a bad spot. So if you're going with any combination of backup quarterback Gunnar Stockton and backup quarterback Jaden Rashada, I'm not worried about that if I'm Notre Dame. Notre Dame's defense is really stinking good. Now, I am worried about Notre Dame's passing game. I don't know if Notre Dame gets in a negative game script. I do think it could be curtains for the Irish. But Marcus Freeman has this Notre Dame defense playing really well. The injury to defensive tackle Riley Mills is important. Watch that as we get closer to this game. But other than that, I really like the Irish in this spot. Georgia's offense has not been particularly scary to me as a viewer with Carson Beck. Without Carson Beck, I think it's a much different proposition against Notre Dame.
All right, we saved what I think is the best for last. I think this game is just... I am both fascinated and offended by this game. I mean, Ohio State is favored over the #1 team in the country. I mean, you know what this tells you? Ohio State's the best team in the country. And Michigan was just a blip. At least that's what the odds makers are saying. Is that what Richard Johnson is saying?
Yes, it is, Eric. Yes, it is. I think Ohio State, we had all the histrionics for the last couple weeks since they stubbed their toe against Michigan with a bad offensive game plan. They came out with a different offensive game plan last night against Tennessee, and you saw that they've got plenty of fireworks. If Will Howard is able to be kept clean and Will Howard does not make mistakes, good luck against this Ohio State offense. And this Ohio State defense, I think, is the best position group of any offense or defense in the college football playoff. It's one thing that a lot of people don't talk about. This Ohio State defense is incredible. Now, the only team that has put up more than 20 points against this Ohio State defense are those Oregon Ducks. Oregon, when you play Oregon, you always got to be worried about a 2-point conversion, a fake field goal, going for it on 4th down. Dan Lanning and Oregon they're very, very aggressive. Because of that, I'm always terrified to bet against Oregon because they are the masters of a backdoor cover just with how they manage a game. But I do like Ohio State in this spot. It's really hard to beat a team twice. And I think the Buckeyes are the best team in the country, even though Oregon is unblemished and number 1 coming in.
All right, last one. I'll make this quick. Will you give me Ohio State and Oregon and take everybody else?
Oh, versus the field? Yeah, because I really like Notre Dame, too. In our own bracket on CBSSports.com, I actually picked Notre Dame because I like Notre Dame's path.
I have Texas over Notre Dame in the final. But I will say this. Okay. I get the winner of this, and you only get 2 cracks at me. So basically, is the winner of this going to win 2 more games? Because, all your teams knock each other off. You only get I'd say it's kind of always a trick question because I'm giving you 6 teams. I'm really only giving you 2. The 2 teams that have to play these 2. And I think I would take Ohio State and Oregon against the field. If I could get plus money, that's what I would have. Excellent job. Really a pleasure to get your thoughts. Look, you want more Richard Johnson, you need more. He's part of everybody's doing this Cover 3 thing. It's terrific. Get in on that. Watch it now. Scan that QR code. You'll be all set. All right. Best bets, Sunday Night Football. Coming at you next. I'm Eric Asilius. Yeah, primetime pregame.